We're going back to the beginning here. Back to the origin, my origin. How did my journey to being the creativity sensei begin? Well, it was right here, right where I am walking right now. On November 20th, 1996, as I was passing this very part of my property, I asked a question: what should I do? The answer came to me: inspire others to do their art. And at exactly the footsteps where I am right now, I had that squishy feeling inside when you know you have the answer. When you know, you know. But then what? What do you do with something like that? Well, curiously, this coincided with a time when I was having weekly meetings with a friend who wanted to be a life coach, I guess. And I was her experiment, kind of a prototype. We met every Sunday morning at a coffee shop in the next town over and talk about my progress. I think in one of the early meetings, I had shared that I wanted to write a novel. This is a novel that I had been working on for a while. Writing isn't hard. Taking the next step of sharing it is hard, because the passion project that you're working on then leaves the safety of your arms and has the opportunity to be read by an audience that doesn't actually know you. And this is a topic I'll go a deep dive in another video. But why I'm sharing this here is because the next Sunday morning, when we met again, I was so excited to share with her my new idea. I had come up with a name for this initiative. To this day, 2 with the number 2 and this day. I had purchased the domain. I had created 10 website pages. I still have those pages somewhere. And you know what? They're still good. They are still good. And when I sat down, I remember looking at her, me so excited. And do you know what she said? You are beyond help. That's what she said. You are beyond help. I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. There was a part of me that was thinking, she's right. Absolutely right. I am beyond help. I've talked about wanting to write a novel for years, and all of a sudden I'm taking this sidestep to starting a business in a field I don't even know what it was going to be. I don't think that the field of being a creativity coach had quite emerged, although the fabulous Eric Meisel was already writing books, was already counseling people. In fact, he gave me some of my first opportunities in coaching artists and creatives. at the back of one of his books, it said something like, email me if you'd like to be certified as a creativity coach. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember this. He sent me a list of names of people from around the world who volunteered to be coached. I wanted my reach to be far and wide. And so I chose people from around the world. Vivian in Spain, Eileen in Ireland, Colleen in South Africa. We sent back and forth weekly emails. They told me what they were up to, and I gave them ideas on how to proceed. I still follow all three of these artists on Facebook and Instagram, and they are all successful in their art field. And yet, I was beyond help. It's ironic, isn't it? I was beyond help. I never did anything with that website. Eventually, the domain expired. But the calling to inspire others to do their art remained. Other things in my past that have helped to shape who I am today, and why today I call myself the Creativity Sensei. When I was young, my mother was an artist, but she was also a musician. She and her girlfriend, Carolyn, way before I was born, performed at USO shows and various venues throughout the region. They both played guitar and they both sang. They performed country western, and they were probably pretty popular. My dad was at one of those shows, and eventually, after 6 years of dating and waiting, they got married. My mom also was a painter, a very realistic painter. She mostly worked in oil paints, later on switching to acrylic paints and some watercolors. She also learned from my father's father the business of sign painting, and she and my dad had a sign business at our house where I still live, where I still create. The sign business was fraught with ups and downs, I'm sure. Still, what I grew up with was watching my mom and my dad figure things out. Very creative. My dad constructing signs or cutting blanks to be silk screened. My mom doing her layouts and painting letters, not only on signs, but also on trucks. And when she could, she painted pictures. The Old North Bridge, the Sudbury Inn, various scenes, California, Vermont, Canada. I grew up watching that. I think I have an innate sense for art. My mother also was a very talented seamstress. She made all of her clothes and clothes for my sister and me. It was a wonderful skill to have when I'm sure our financial situation was not great. I don't remember buying many clothes in stores, but I do remember going over to the mill stores where she could buy yards and yards of fabric, often for 25 cents a yard. And with her skill, she could turn that fabric into beautiful clothing. A lot of times my sister and I had matching outfits, but we were 4 years apart, so rarely did we look like twins. I do remember one set of dresses that my mother made, one for her, one for my sister, and one for me. And the thing with having an older sister is eventually she grows out of that item and I grew into it, so it seemed like some of my clothes I would wear for 6 or 8 years. I learned a lot from watching her, and yet I didn't learn how to sew from her. I could never understand her instructions. She said things like, you have to sew a sleeve from inside the sleeve, and it didn't make any sense to me. Later, when I went off to college, I bought a sewing machine for $200, and during my downtime at school, I would make clothes for myself, so mostly self-taught. And that $200 sewing machine became the first thing I used when I started my own sewing business. Other experiences that are definitely part of my origin story would be a 3rd grade substitute teacher. I have no idea what her name was, but I still kind of remember the classroom. We were reading some complicated story. It seemed like it was about a cat that was anthropomorphized. I don't remember, but I do remember this. She asked a question. I raised my hand. She called on me. And I said, I don't remember what I was going to say. Now, I know that's a common thing to happen. It happens to me sometimes in my own classes. Her response was, don't raise your hand unless you have something to say. I was the kind of kid that always wanted to do things right. And that command stuck with me for the rest of my grammar school years, into high school, into college. I blame her for that, but it's not her fault. Trauma is a weird thing. What one person says offhandedly, just like my pseudo coaching friend saying you're beyond help, that does not linger in their mind, but it does become lodged in our own psyche. And so we are back to the place where I received my calling. And the story continues. That was 1996, with the interruption in my career development. A lot of other things happened. Most notably, my son was taking bassoon lessons, and one year he participated in a concert band that rehearsed on Sunday afternoons about 45 minutes from our house, so it was often more convenient to stay rather than drive home and then turn around and drive back to pick them up. One afternoon, I was sitting in their dingy waiting room. I remember thinking how depressing it was, gray paint, dim lights, nothing welcoming there. I was reading the book, Practical Intuition. That book includes a lot of little exercises. One of the exercises went something like this. Close your eyes, and when you open them, the first thing that you see is the answer you seek. It was literally something like that. And so I did it. I closed my eyes. When I opened my eyes, the first thing that I saw was a blank crossword puzzle. Not a complicated puzzle, more an elementary school puzzle. How I interpreted that message was that I needed to fill in the blanks. I knew what I wanted to do. I wasn't there yet. So I set about filling in those blanks. I accidentally got accepted into an MFA program in creative writing. And you're wondering, how can you do that by accident? Well, it was the time of the internet, early on, or at least for me. And on a Thursday night, I had decided that I was going to see if I could find a writing course nearby me. So I did a quick little search, and what popped up was a brand new creative writing program in Cambridge. And it was a low residency program, meaning I did not have to attend classes every day through the semester. This was early on in online learning. There was an email address, and I sent a query. Friday morning, in my inbox was a message saying, "We received your inquiry. If you would be able to send us 25 pages of your writing, the committee is meeting today at lunch." I had been writing nonfiction columns for my local newspaper, and just that week, the editor had sent me a message from a reader saying how much they enjoyed this particular column. So I assembled 11 or 12 of my essays. I put that one on top, page 1, and I sent it off. Monday morning, I got a call from the program director saying, "We read your work and we'd like to invite you to the program if you could please just submit the $50 application fee." And so I was in. 2 years later, I had my MFA in creative writing. And the story continues. The next year, my son, who had started his undergrad, learned about a course in how to teach at the college level. I would be paired with an instructor and we would meet, and I thought, okay, give that a try. I had wanted to teach college, specifically college writing, since I did my student teaching as a senior when I realized that I really wasn't cut out to be a high school teacher, but I loved the seniors, so I knew that that age group was right for me. And yes, this might feel like I'm getting a little bit off topic, but this was all about filling in the blanks. Another blank was learning to write better. And also, I recently heard when you teach, 2 people learn. That is so true. I did that course, and the following year, I applied to, I think, 3, 4 different colleges to be a college professor, an adjunct in writing, and 2 of them gave me the job. That fall, I was teaching 2 classes at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell and 2 classes at Atlantic Union College. Meanwhile, my sewing business had basically shut down. I had 1 employee at the time, and I kept her busy and myself grading papers, cutting fabric, also filling in the blanks. But another lifelong goal of mine was to have a PhD. It was one weekday afternoon after I had taken on a couple other classes at UMass. One was for the Navitas program, which was a gateway program for international students. And in that opening reception one year, I met two young women who had just earned their PhDs. And I said, I've always wanted a PhD. And they said, well, you should go for it. And I said, but what would I get that PhD in? And they said, you're a teacher. How about education? And it was another one of those epiphany moments, because I never wanted a PhD in English because that meant too much reading and literary analysis. And what I was most interested in was writing and the writing process. But the College of Education was a perfect fit for me. And my next question to these two young women was, but where would I go? And they said, here. We have a fabulous College of Education. I applied, and a month later, I was accepted into an EDD program. But when I first met with my advisor, he said they were considering adding a PhD, which would mean 15 more credits and a new application process. Long story short, 6 years later, I earned my doctorate. Very, very proud moment, and another block in that crossword puzzle was filled in. And so here we are. I'm sharing my origin story with you so that you can fill in your blocks too. Blocks can literally be blocks, blockades, stopping points, but also blocks can be a building block, helping you in your journey. That's what I want to do as the Creativity Sensei. I want to show you how you can transform your creativity. I also want to teach you how to build your confidence. Confidence is key. And I also know that in doing these things, you will find joy in your work. On that November morning, with weather much like this, a little overcast, I found my calling. What is your calling? How can I help you to transform and to finally answer the call? Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey asks you to accept the call to enter the extraordinary world of creativity. Find a mentor, find the elixir, and bring it back into your ordinary world where you will benefit those around you and those you don't even know. This is our journey together. In the comments, send me what you're working on. Tell me your origin story. I would love to read it. A biento.